Good afternoon readers, it's Tilly here from Tilly's Shelf, and for the second week in a row I'm here with a tag for Tag Tuesday. I need to not get carried away with this because, it's happened twice now. It's strange. So I've been tagged to do the Shakespeare tag. I was tagged by Katie at Books and Things, and the tag was originally created by Libby Stevenson, who does a really fascinating bard book club where, for instance, when she did Hamlet, she went through all of the soliloquies. She always says really interesting things, so I definitely recommend that if you somehow don't know about her, you go and check her out. I'll put a link in the description. So Katie did this tag with her partner Nick, and that was another, I'll link that one as well because they had a really nice discussion about I guess the different experiences that they'd had of Shakespeare, and kind of different things that different plays meant to each of them. Two definite videos to check out. Two. So I'm gonna plunge in, I guess. I've sat on the floor so that I can display my my Shakespeare collection, such as it is. And yeah, I'm going to try and pick things up as we go along so that I can do the obligatory book waving, despite the very long list of titles that will be mentioned in this. So, question number one is, what was your first exposure to Shakespeare? So I have this vague memory, and I'm hoping that Roz, who is my mum, will possibly be able to help me out with this, that we had some kind of cartoon book, and I think there were two. I think there was one that was ancient Greek myths and legends, and I think there was one that was Shakespeare plays. And I think my first exposure to Shakespeare was reading these cartoon versions, which were obviously simplified and turned into child-friendly pictures. And I think in that book there was Twelfth Night, obviously, and I just have a vivid memory of Malvolio with yellow stockings with green cross garters all the way up that were kind of wiggly at the end, and I can really picture a cartoon of Malvolio with green cross garters on his yellow stockings. And I think that if this exists, if this is real, if it's not an invented memory, that is the start of my obsession with Twelfth Night and Malvolio's stockings, which persists to this day and can be seen in the video that I made with Roz discussing Twelfth Night a couple of weeks ago. I'll link that one as well, in case you're interested. But in case that's an invented memory, I have a lot of other early memories of kind of Shakespeare related stuff, most of which are linked to my grandfather, who was my dad's dad, and staying at his house and just having Shakespeare associated memories linked with him. For instance, I can remember maybe staying there one holiday and we watched a lot of Shakespeare DVDs. He definitely had a massive collection of Shakespeare films, and I think we watched one that was Love's Labour's Lost, where there were people in really colourful costumes that I really liked. But I also remember watching a version of Henry V that was so unbelievably boring, just unfathomably boring for me as a small child, and yet now it's a play that I really like. So I think that must be a pretty early memory, and I have a feeling it's got to be quite an old film of Henry V, maybe Laurence Olivier, but I don't know why they would have thought that would have been something that was going to entertain us. Maybe it was something that the grown-ups were watching and me and my brother just happened to be in the room. I don't know, but those are some early memories of Shakespeare. Definitely my family was one where we were exposed to Shakespeare from a very young age, and it was just a normal thing, so we were very lucky in that. So, what Shakespeare plays have you read? So I've read most of comedies. I haven't read most of the comedies. I have read most in the category of comedies, if that makes any sense. So this is where it's all going to start falling down. Yeah. So I've read The Merchant of Venice. I have studied this at equivalent of A-level, so I know this one relatively well and I rate it quite highly. I've got 2 copies of The Merchant of Venice. I knew that. Cool. I have read Much Ado About Nothing, which is somewhere here. Yeah, it begins. So I've studied this one as well. I studied this one for GCSE, and a lot of my classmates hated it. I really liked the kind of the repartee between Beatrice and Benedict. I found it quite interesting. I have read The Tempest. I think I've read The Tempest. which I don't have a copy of. I've read Twelfth Night, which I don't have a copy of. I've also acted in Twelfth Night. I was Duke Orsino. I think I've read The Winter's Tale, but I'm not sure if it really counts, if I can't remember whether or not I've read it, but I know that I've seen it and then gone to read it because I liked seeing it, so I don't know how far along I got. That's true of quite a lot of the plays. That's a recurring theme for this question. And then I have read a very strangely edited version of A Midsummer Night's Dream. I think I've read the full version as well, but I've definitely read an edited version because we did it when I was in, I think, year 6, so it would have been about 10 or 11. We did a version of A Midsummer Night's Dream that was a musical, and I can strongly remember like storming around my music classroom being like, if Shakespeare had wanted it to be a musical, he would have written it as a musical, and I was generally unimpressed. I now know that there is quite a lot of music in quite a few Shakespeare plays, and it can fit in really beautifully and kind of accentuate the themes, but I can definitely tell you that the songs that Shakespeare wrote in various plays were not the songs that we were singing in that version of Much Ado About Nothing. I was, however, pretty excited because that would have been the first Shakespeare play I would have had a chance to act in. I really, really, really wanted to play Puck, so at that stage I obviously knew A Midsummer Night's Dream well enough to know that I wanted to play Puck, and I had various ideas about, so again associated with my grandfather, I remember talking to his wife and having like these really enthusiastic ideas about how I was going to wear my hair, and she was trying to tell me like how I could act it like as a character, and I was just obsessed with the idea of my hair, and I knew while she was talking to me about how to act it that I was not prioritising correctly, but I still cared more about how I was going to dress that up as a fairy. Unfortunately, I didn't get the role of Puck. I got the role of Bottom, but then my music teacher told me that, in fact, I wasn't going to be Bottom, I was going to be Peter Quince, and her rationale was, in order to play Bottom, you have to sing really badly, and she said it's going to be easier to teach someone to sing badly if they can sing well to start with. Which I didn't take any offence at the time. So instead I played Peter Quince, and who is like the leader of the Mechanicals, he's the director of the Mechanicals play, and during the performance I fell down the back of the stage, which presumably worked pretty well for the way that the Mechanicals are supposed to be, but yeah, it was not intentional, and I was quite uncomfortable. But yeah, so that's Midsummer Night's Dream. Moving on to the histories, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked, this might be a long one. I haven't really read any of the histories that I'm sure of. I think I might have read some of Richard III, but I definitely haven't read the whole of any of a history play that I can remember clearly. Tragedies, there's quite a few that are in the grey area. I think I may have read Hamlet, I think I may have read King Lear, and I think I may have read Romeo and Juliet, but I'm not sure. I've definitely started all of those, so I've read maybe half of all of them, who knows. I have definitely read Julius Caesar and Titus Andronicus for ShakeTube, I think 2 years ago, and I like Titus Andronicus. That's another one that I've acted in. I played Titus Andronicus, but Julius Caesar, it just completely didn't win me over, but more about that later. And I've read a selection of the sonnets, but I like bits of them, but maybe they don't, I didn't like them as much as I think I was supposed to, and I think I kind of struggle with some of the themes and their obsession with beauty and decay. I find them quite threatening in places, and sometimes they make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. That is not to say that there aren't bits of them that are very moving. They are definitely kind of moving and beautifully written, but I don't like them as much as I like the plays. I'm going to put it like that. So, which have you seen? I feel like this is a lot of listing here. Oh, and I forgot with the books. Oh well. So mostly the Shakespeare plays that I've seen have been at the Globe or at the National Theatre, or a couple I've seen at, I think it's maybe called the Swan Theatre in Stratford-upon-Avon, which I've been lucky enough to go to a couple of times, variously through school trips and family holidays and things like that. Mostly they were arranged by the RSC, the Royal Shakespeare Company, who are kind of like the chieftains of organising Shakespeare plays here in the UK. Then I have seen a couple at the Royal Theatre in Brighton, which was like where I grew up. I definitely saw a version of Hamlet there, and a couple in just random places, including at my secondary school, but I'll come to that. And what else then? Others just on film, for instance. The Hologram, which is just a fantastic series of the history plays. So what have I seen? Comedies, again, starting with comedies. I've seen As You Like It, Comedy of Errors, Love's Labour's Lost, Merchant of Venice, and I have got the programme here for an absolutely brilliant version that I saw while I was studying this in college, and it is, they turned Venice into like Vegas, so there's this challenge during the play in which the hero has to choose, or the suitors of a woman have to choose which casket is the right casket, and they turned that into a game show, like a kind of reality TV, or like a quiz show almost. It was fantastic. It was really, really good, and definitely the best version that I've seen. And we had to then come back and write a review of it for college. It was one of the best assignments for English literature I've ever done. I just had a really good teacher for those 2 years, and yeah, he was great. So I kept the programme for that one. Then I have seen Midsummer Night's Dream repeatedly, Twelfth Night repeatedly. Just whenever I can see either of those plays, I will always go out of my way to see them. So I think I've seen maybe a Midsummer Night's Dream I might have seen in Bradford, because that's a little way away from here, but it's got a good theatre. I think it's called the Alhambra, so I think we went over to see that, I think. The Tempest, I have seen The Tempest with National Theatre Live. I think it was Simon Russell Beale who played Prospero. I've seen it a couple of other times as well, including with my brother playing Prospero at our secondary school, as I mentioned, and he did a really good job. He was brilliant. Yeah, I really remember aspects of the play from that version, almost more than from some of the more professional versions that I've seen. So yeah, and I have seen The Winter's Tale, which I think was a National Theatre version. Histories-wise, I've only seen 2 history plays live. So I've seen Henry IV Part 2, not Part 1, just Part 2, at the Globe, and that was, I must have been about 15, and I took the train up to London and like dragged my then boyfriend along with me to see this Shakespeare play, and it was really good. I think we queued outside and then got some of the standing room tickets at the last minute, so it was like a little adventure into like seeing the Globe. I would definitely recommend it if you live within an hour of London, just to try that for a day. It was worth it. It was good. And Rich the Third, I saw at the Old Vic, and I had the programme for that one. Ooh. There we go. It was, I feel like his name begins with a K. Sorry for the delay here. Can't find his name. It's like it's a name that the moment I find it, I'll be like, oh, kicking myself that I couldn't remember it. Kevin Spacey. There we go. Kevin Spacey. Yeah. And it was good. But it's definitely not one of my favourite plays. Then tragedies. I have seen quite a few of them. Antony and Cleopatra, I have seen once. I think it was at the Globe, but I really barely remember. I mainly remember kind of like the final scenes. I've seen Hamlet and King Lear, again, whenever I can, repeatedly, because they're just brilliant plays. Macbeth, including the recent film, that was a really good film. And that was the first Shakespeare that Beau and I saw together, and he didn't expect it to be quite as brutal as it was, I think. Romeo and Juliet, again, quite a few times, and Titus Andronicus, which I saw the film version of when we were doing the play at school. So that takes me to a respectable 19. So that's not too bad. I feel like I could do better in the scope of BookTube Shakespeare lovers, but I think for like an average person, having seen 19 Shakespeare plays, is not too bad, particularly given that like that's like one a year from the time when I could reasonably process any of the Shakespeare information, I think. So do you have a favourite edition of the complete works? So I do have an edition of the complete works. It should be there. Interestingly, it is not, and I can't find it, and I don't understand how you can lose the complete works of Shakespeare, because it's massive, and I've looked in every room in the house, and I can't find it, and I don't know where it is. But it's not very nice. It's orange, it's paperback, it's really surprisingly flimsy for saying that it's so big, and the font is tiny and difficult to read and just bad. And basically I got this as a souvenir the first time I went to Stratford, and I was in the shop and I was choosing between the orange flimsy paperback edition and a blue hardback edition that was much bigger and much more sturdy. And the reason that I chose the horrible orange version was because it was a couple of pounds cheaper, and I really wanted to also buy a pen, and I bought this really fancy pen with cartridges of ink. And then I got it home and I broke it almost straight away. I kept it for ages after it was broken because I was so annoyed that I spent, it was an expensive pen. It was for an expensive pen for an 11-year-old, it was a £5 or something. I was really annoyed that I'd bought and broken this pen. But yeah, so in my head, the best possible complete works that I could have owned is that blue one that I didn't get because I got the broken pen. But yeah, I don't have a favourite complete works other than that little story. But I am trying to increase my collection of individual copies, just because I found that I don't really enjoy reading from a complete works. But I do enjoy having little copies that might have some notes and some facts along with them. What is your favourite comedy? So traditionally, and I was talking about this in the video about Twelfth Night that I did with my mum, Twelfth Night is my favourite, but I have the feeling increasingly that it's my favourite because it's my favourite, and it's just a perpetuating thing that I've always said that Twelfth Night is my favourite play, and therefore it remains my favourite play. I think in terms of actual humour and enjoyment, I probably enjoy Midsummer Night's Dream more, and in terms of interest and thought-provoking questions, it would have to be the Tempest or The Merchant of Venice. Generally speaking, I really like the comedies. I enjoy them quite a lot, and I tend to like the themes, and I like the irony of them, that they're quite often kind of not so happy endings, I suppose, or I like the kind of the mix that they have. So yeah, I like the comedies, to summarise. What is your favourite history? So, some of the speeches in Richard II, let's try to find Richard II out here. I feel like I haven't waved anything for a while. Here we go. Some of the speeches in Richard II, to me, are just absolute perfection and really, really beautiful. They just bear no comparison. So Let Us Sit Upon the Ground. Oh, I didn't realise, I didn't even intentionally sit upon the ground to reference that, but yeah, Let Us Sit Upon the Ground and Tell Sad Stories of the Death of Kings, that speech is fantastic. The speeches that he makes about England, even not being a patriotic person, I find them very stirring, and I think that they speak about something very fundamental about how much we love and value our homes, and also about the beauty of the area in which we do live, even aside from who rules it and things like that. So I definitely rate parts of this play very highly, but I don't think that it hangs together maybe as well as it could do, or as well as other plays do. I think it depends how it's done, and it's done very well in this version. But I'm just thinking back to when I was talking about the history plays that I'd been to see, and I don't think I mentioned that I have seen Henry IV Parts 1 and 2 and Henry V on DVD. Sorry, I feel like that was a little bit all over the place there. But yeah, I've seen them. So, leading on from that, focused mind here, I think the plot and character development in the three plays about Henry, do some waving, oopsie, lost one of them, where is it? Oh, I see, there's 2 DVDs in the one box, cool. So the kind of plot and character development in these plays is really strong, and something that you don't necessarily see elsewhere in Shakespeare. it just kind of like, it tells an overarching story that I really enjoy. So I rate these ones pretty highly, but I realise that is cheating because I've basically chosen 4 history plays as my favourite, and I kind of did that for the comedies as well. But it gets more simple with the tragedies, because with the tragedies I'm pretty confident that King Lear is just my favourite far and away. Do you know what, I'm actually a little bit hungry, and I think that's why I'm not delivering this in the smoothest way possible. I feel like I'm not, for saying that we're talking about one of the greatest writers in the English language throughout history, my command of the English language and of, the structure of delivery of the English language, for saying that it's about theatre as well, in this video is pretty poor, so I do apologise for that. Yes, least favourite play. So my least favourite play is definitely Julius Caesar. However, I don't know whether it's fair because I read it on serial reader, so I read it on my phone, and it was like a small screen and swiping a lot, and it wasn't really a very comfortable reading experience. And I also read it in a bit of a rush because I was trying to finish it within the time frame of the week that it was due to be read in ShakeTube. And I have never seen it performed, so I think it's my least favourite, but it didn't really get a fair contest. My least favourite play that I have actually seen and potentially read some of is Richard III. It didn't really speak to me as well as some of the other ones. What I would say is that overall, definitely I think Shakespeare is amazing and brilliant, and most of the other plays, apart from Julius Caesar and Richard III, I would be able to argue at least into my top 5. I think there are a lot of places where the writing is impeccable, but most plays have at least one slightly baggy scene. Most plays have at least one little patch that doesn't quite work as smoothly to me. So that's maybe just a thought. And I guess it all depends on interpretation and how you play it, and some of those scenes you can see it in one version and think, and in another version it becomes like quite an interesting scene. So it all depends on direction. Which leads on to the next question: which play would you want to direct? So I have been slightly involved in direction, because particularly in Titus Andronicus, my drama teacher really involved us in trying to direct and stage the play, and I think particularly some of us who were particularly keen on drama and Shakespeare, he got us more involved. So I would say I had quite a role in that, and I did really enjoy it. It would be such an insane privilege to get involved in directing a Shakespeare play. However, it would also be a huge amount of work and a huge burden of responsibility, and you would have to really look into the hidden meanings of the plays and the kind of analysis of the characters and stuff if you were going to have any chance of doing it justice. So I think it would be easiest to do a lesser known play, so the standard would not be set quite so high, but the lesser known plays are sometimes lesser known for a reason, and maybe they have more of those kind of patchy scenes in them. I think the one that I feel like I've seen versions where I felt like I could do it better is Much Ado About Nothing. So we studied that, like I said, and we spent a lot of time repeatedly watching bits of the version with Kenneth Branagh and I think Emma Thompson. And I really didn't like a lot of the way that was played. I really felt like they got the chemistry between the characters completely wrong, and it just made it all completely unbelievable and difficult to comprehend. I didn't like the way that it was done. So I feel like I could do that potentially better than that particular film. But I don't think it's something that I really have the skills to do. So which lesser known plays deserve more attention? I don't think I know enough lesser known plays to really have much of an opinion on that. I think Titus Andronicus is a lesser known play. I really like it. It's a very early play, so I think it's kind of, he's just really having fun. He's not really trying to reach some kind of crazy high standard. It's got some really nice speeches in it. It's got some very interesting themes in it. It's got, brutal Greek myth type elements, and a little bit of quite a lot of black humour. So I think I would like to be able to just go and see that, and not, like, it's not a play that really ever gets staged, and I'd like to see it staged, because it's one that I've got an affection for, weirdly. And a bonus question is, which play would you teach? I think it's teach or act in, from what I've written down. So if I were a teacher, and I am not, so I wouldn't be able to do it justice, but if I were a teacher, I think I would teach King Lear, because it's amazing and wonderful. And if I was an actor and I could pick a role, I would probably go for Viola from Twelfth Night, or Cordelia from King Lear, or just basically any of the more interesting younger female characters. There are quite a few younger female characters who are not very interesting and who don't play a particularly broad range of emotions, but some of them really do, and they would be the ones that I would go for. And then I need to tag some people. So I am going to tag, just blanket tag, the ShakeTube hosts, which is Steve Donahue and Lukash from Totally Pretentious. Jason, our Old Blues chapter and verse, has already done this tag, so he is exempt, but in his place I tag anybody who participated in ShakeTube last year, if you want to do it. And I would recommend it. It's good fun. And it makes you think about, where you are on your ShakeTube reading journey, because, don't we all want to be on a Shakespeare reading journey? I don't know. The bonus question that I would add is, which Shakespeare play have you not read that you feel like you ought to have read? And for me, that would be Othello. I feel like it's a play that everybody kind of seems to talk about and have an opinion on, and I hear a lot about it on BookTube, and I hear it referenced frequently in terms of, like, in the 50 Ideas about Literature book that I'm reading. They constantly talk about, like, issues that come up in Othello, and I've never read it and I've never seen it, and I don't really know anything about it apart from there is a jealous husband, and it's a tragedy, so I think we can probably predict where that is going. But I haven't read it yet, so maybe I should read that while I'm on annual leave. Potentially add it to the pile of things I'm trying to read in these couple of weeks. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and take care, and I hope this was in some way interesting. I feel like it was just me listing Shakespeare plays and rambling, but hopefully it was alright. Take care, bye bye.